So, ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, we will give 1 minute for all attendees to settle down with their access to the system, and we will start with our 90 seconds LGMA video, and we will take you through the agenda of today. Thanks for your patience. So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, all participants. Thanks a lot for your time in joining the 18th monthly webinar of local governments and the municipal authorities constituency for the climate COP26, hosted by ICLE, Local Governments for Sustainability, in its capacity as the focal point of the LGMA constituency. My name is Yunus Khan. I'm the Director of Global Advocacy at ICLE, and I'm also delivering the service in the service of being the focal point of LGMA to the UNFCCC process. Today we will have a 1 hour of session. Just before going into details, let me give you some housekeeping rules. This session is recorded and it will be uploaded on the web, which can be accessible by others as well. You will also receive the presentation. We usually take our webinars in a sense that sometimes we have guests, but for this round we don't have any guests. So I will try to be both moderator but also the first presenter. Our presentation usually takes around 30 to 40 minutes. Unfortunately, I know it's not easy to follow one man speaking or one person speaking for so long, but I'm sure you would be able to connect to us attentively as much as possible. During the session, during the presentation, you may feel free to type in chat box or Q&A boxes. If it is extremely burning, we can immediately respond, but if not, we can leave it to the Q&A process section, and there you can also intervene verbally so that any missing points you can contribute. Well, also, this is an internal webinar of LGMA constituency, which is more than 30 or 25 networks across the world of local and regional governments, but we are promoting it on the social media and ICLE newsletter, so it is very likely there may be some newcomers. What we do is that we take up through our regular standard background or basics of climate conference, the COPs process, LGMA, then we go to the agenda that has been evolved in the last 4 weeks since the last webinar, and then we conclude with the agenda of the next coming weeks. Just for those who have been not being able to join us before, you can watch our previous webinars recordings. You can also have a look at the LGMA playlist for the 5th anniversary of Paris Agreement. That is kind of a compilation of our messages and latest updates. The website of the home of the LGMA is citiesandregions.org/COP26 for the COP26 process. The logos beneath are the partners involved in this, especially for COP26, but obviously LGMA constituency is broader than that, and we appreciate all the contributions from all partners. With that in mind, let's immediately dig into the discussion points of our webinar today. Just let me check any input so far. No Q&A, no chat box yet. Okay. Paris Agreement 2015 was a remarkable moment. We consider this as a new era on global climate action. Why? Because of three main points. First of all, it is recognizing multi-level and multi-stakeholder action. This is one of the biggest difference compared to climate change convention, framework convention, or its Kyoto Protocol. This time, in the preambular paragraph, it refers to recognition of importance of all levels of government and all multi-stakeholders. It specifically addresses 1.5-degree goal, and climate neutrality as a way to reach to this goal. So if you consider, and there's no annex of Paris Agreement, all parties who are signed to Paris Agreement, they universally agree with these goals. Obviously, each of their trajectory will be different, but by reaching this 1.5 goal, by reaching to climate neutrality before the mid-century, and working with all levels of government and with all stakeholders, is something that unanimously adopted by all parties in the north and south, in the west and east. So therefore, it is a universal. That's why it is so important. Obviously, each of those stakeholders have different roles and responsibilities. National governments, these are the ones who are responsible for the implementation primarily. Therefore, we are encouraging them for the COP26 that they should bring new NDCs, new national determined contributions, which are their national climate commitments. Why? Because the ones that are already on the table were all prepared before Paris Agreement was adopted. They were all prepared in the few months before Paris Agreement. So obviously, and nobody's fault that none of them refer to those principles. Therefore, every NDC should be revised, and that's why it is important that these are done before Glasgow COP26, because national determined contributions, by its name, is national. So national parliaments, national governments are the ones who would submit or approve this. Therefore, regardless of an in-person or virtual COP, by November or afterwards, this doesn't have to change anything in the national level. The national governments should come prepared. They should present their new NDCs, hopefully with more multi-level engagement. Second, local and regional governments. We are always saying that the way we're engaged in the climate process is different after Paris Agreement, because before Paris Agreement, there were no responsibility or anything to force us to do this. It was volunteer climate action. All these climate commitments of local and regional governments was complementing to what they're traditionally doing at the urban or regional level. But with our recognition in the Paris Agreement explicitly, climate action, especially ambitious climate action, is one of our duties as local and regional governments across the world. So it's not anymore voluntary. So the 1.5-degree goal, climate neutrality, climate emergency, these should be now part and parcel of all local and regional plans. Therefore, this is the new way of working in the Paris Agreement era. And finally, other stakeholders, we're all saying that the benefits of a new era of civilization, a new post-fossil fuel civilization, should be shared by all. It's not just those companies who reap the benefits of a new technology or a new product, but urban poor, migrants, all those who are suffering from inequalities should be inspired to be part of this new transition, so that they could find themselves into this process and they are able to support this transition. That's important, because without citizen engagement, none of those government policies could be implemented. And that's why it is so important that we have to act together. So climate conference, as name it says, it's 26, so it has happened 25 times before. It is an annual process. Conference of Parties is a body that meets every year around November, December. The country who hosts this is become the presidency, and these are the ones who are responsible for the implementation of the outcomes. And the responsible starts with the day the COP starts. So as of today, Chile, who has been host of the in collaboration with the physical host was Spain, but political host was Chile. They are the responsible ones in the implementation of Paris Agreement at the moment, and the UNFCCC. It's the president of the COP is the Minister of Environment of Chile, and the incoming presidency or president designate, which is Right Honorable Alok Sharma, will only be fully in charge of the process only when COP starts sometime 31st of October, hopefully. That is a very unique, let's say, detail, but it's important. And The year-round process is a complex one. Since Paris Agreement, we have a new appointee, which is high-level climate action champion, appointed by the president of the COP. And this time it is Gonzalo Munoz from Chile, and the incoming presidency has appointed Nigel Topping. But the incoming presidency UK government has also introduced a number of new elements. So more advisors, more appointees like Mark Carney, Anne-Marie Trevelyan, or regional ambassadors. But there are also new bodies. All these are voluntary and always serving to the presidency. Friends of COP, and we have a local leader there, chair of the C40, and also mayor of Los Angeles, Mayor Garcetti, is part of this community. There is a cities and regions advisory council for the UK. There's again devolved administrations for the UK council. There's a civil society and youth advisory council, which I am joining as LGMA focal point. There's a new appointee, Sir David Attenborough, as a people's advocate, which is a new task. We don't know how it will implement, but it's an innovative process. So these are the processes, these are the bodies that are contributing to the leadership of this process. As we said, every year there is a regular agenda. We have been convening with all these things, but every year the presidency has also its own agendas. So our LGMA constituency, the local and regional governments, appeals for the decisions designed according to those both regular processes but also the priorities of this specific year. So we are very happy the UK government has evolved or improved their priorities, that in addition to mitigation, adaptation, finance, collaboration with all stakeholders is now a core part of it. Therefore, what we were asking since December 2019 in Chile in 2019, which is towards a multi-level action COP, is really now becoming much more important. Our 7 priorities plus mobilization is guiding our work in the process. Obviously, since March, there's no official negotiations going on. What we are seeing now, there's 3, let's say, corners of advocacy. One, the regular meetings, Standing Committee on Climate Finance, Paris Committee on Capacity Building, or workshops that we are participating as LGMA. These are independent from the priorities, or they are regularly conducting their work. These are implementing the decisions adopted in the previous COPs. Presidency, the UK and Chile are conducting regular consultations. They are under the authority of the presidency. They are not necessarily guided by the principles of the process. Therefore, our engagement as observers are relatively, let's say, ad hoc. There are opportunities that we can engage in person or submit comments. There were 1 ministerial this year, Climate and Development Ministerial in March, and a new one is coming this week. We will touch upon this. And in addition to these 2 processes, the climate champions with the Marrakesh Partnership are introducing new mechanisms, new opportunities. We have climate action pathways, the thematic working groups, which is much more stakeholder-based process. But the champions have introduced since last year Race to Zero, Race to Resilience, Race to Zero breakthroughs. These are new mechanisms, and the idea is that they are all connected to the outcome, so that the information they provide, the outcome they present, are recognized by parties. So we as LGMA have been asking for the mainly 7, let's say, pillars in 4 categories. First of all, we want to make sure the Paris Agreement is delivered. We want to make sure that our ambitions are raised, and we would like to make sure vertical NDCs are coming up. And the good news is that there are more and more countries are coming with their NDCs, which are incorporating local and regional governments, be it from the NDCP CAIP process like Dominican Republic, or individually by Chile or Rwanda as well, again from CAIP process. Also from countries like USA or Japan, which is on the way to submit a new NDC, which are much powerful because of their engagement with local and regional governments. Independent from Paris Agreement, there are regular thematic areas on finance and buildings, transport, but especially new elements like circularity, nature, food, so that the agenda is broad. And we would like to introduce new elements like urbanization ministerial to take place for the first time, in addition to like finance ministerial, energy ministerial. We want to have climate and urbanization ministerial, and there are good responses coming up with that. Culture becoming an important element. Climate justice and social equity with Glasgow, which is putting a huge priority on that, will be a core issue. We are seeing a change of the momentum in the last couple of months with the submission of new NDCs, especially the climate summit in April. In the biodiversity process, we have a fantastic Edinburgh declaration, which is now becoming a decision to extend a 10-year action plan of cities and subnationals in the biodiversity agenda. Now it's one of the only agendas that is almost approved. We want to embrace this into the climate space. And with UN Habitat and other partners, we are more and more receiving signals that an urbanization ministerial can happen before, during, or after COP26. So that's very, very encouraging for all of us. Taking into account all these evolutions, we are discussing with our LGMA members to change gears towards COP26 that is much more outcome oriented, that is much more focusing to the decisions. So we are considering to shift our attention from towards, but rather time for multi-level action. So what we have been asking for multi-level action is happening. And our goal is to make sure that this is the new normal across the world at all nations. So the first priority could be that the outcome of Glasgow, the text should encourage, welcome, or welcome and increase more NDCs, and we have discussed with regions for and NAPs, national adaptation plans, to be much more multi-levelly developed. And this also should be bridging our commitments from race to zero, race to resilience, to the NDCs as well. Second is sustainable integrated urban and territorial development as a core climate action area, therefore receiving a particular attention, including climate finance, especially on Article 6.8, which is non-market mechanisms. Any developed and developing country who would developing new cities, new urban settlements, could position this as a non-market mechanism, and this could be a new funding source for many of the investments that is coming across the world, so that the sustainable urban development is beyond the authority of local energy governments, especially in the new cities that will be built. Obviously, mayors or governors can only serve if there's a city. If there's no city, if there's a new one to be built, it is primarily developed as a national process. So it has to be held with other actors as well. And third, we have seen just transition, inclusive action, holistic action, nature-friendly action should be part of our all climate action plans towards 2030 and 2050. It should engage with urban poor. It should engage with migrants that is coming from climate disasters or with other resources, so that holistically, whole of society approach should be embraced in all the UNFCCC, but also national and local and regional plans as well. And finally, you have been seeing that the complexity of Paris Agreement, the Katowice rulebook, and the new second phase of Paris Agreement is demanding more and more input from local and regional governments, both at the national level, but also at the UNFCCC level. Therefore, we encourage all of our partners to be much more robust in our way of engaging throughout the years into the bodies of UNFCCC. Therefore, we wish to have this much more institutionalized in our LGMA constituency, so that we can much more carefully and effectively follow the process. Our last webinar was hosted on the 23rd of June. What has happened since then is this is a summary of all these processes. We had there's an energy ministerial forum that was convened by the UN Secretary General towards an energy summit in September in New York. There were a number of our members participating. There are a number of compacts, energy compacts coming from cities and subnationals. Asia Pacific Regional Climate Week was hosted by City of Yokohama and hosted especially what, of course, Japanese Minister of Environment. Obviously, it was virtual, but there was a strong engagement of local and regional governments, especially in the Asia Pacific region. We are all very strong with networks and our actors. In the same week, we happily and proudly launched the Cities Race to Resilience, hosted by the Global Covenant of Mayors. It was a collaborative effort, which we celebrate. In the high-level political forum, focusing on SDGs, SDG 13 was also an issue. Global Task Force submitted its report, so that we also have been involved in that. Over the past weeks, we have seen new reports coming up. State of Cities Climate Finance by Cities Climate Finance Leadership Alliance, or SLOCAT, releasing the second Transport Climate Change Global Assessment, are all containing new evidences, new data, new information on how cities can be engaged in those difficult and complex, but also essential topics like finance, transport, especially also on the transport. Out of this 10 priority areas of the SLOCAT partnership, 5 of them, or more, almost half of it, are relevant to urban transport. So it is an important area, and we as ICLEI are also part of it, as well as to the state of cities climate finance process. We have seen the release of the first global biodiversity framework, and this is important because This year there will be another COP in the biodiversity, which is another Rio Convention. And as we have said before in the last webinar, we have addressed how our inputs through Edinburgh Declaration and the global advocacy of local energy governments have been informed into the new decision that is a second 10-year action plan for cities and subnational. It is one of the most ambitious and powerful engagement of local energy governments across the UN processes. We are very powerful. We are very proud of it, and we are very happy that this is also enshrined into the global biodiversity framework and the post-2020 process with a very concrete reference. So that is strengthening our work, and we hope, obviously, this will feed into the climate process as a good practice as well. And lastly, UK 100, one of the powerful partners of the LGMA roadmap, they released their communique through their summit, the UK Net Zero Leaders Summit in early July. So we are very happy and congratulate UK 100. And we also know LGA also, Local Government Association, also hosted their conference, so that the UK partners, the UK cities across the UK, not just Scottish, but also English, Welsh, and Northern Ireland, they're all embracing COP26. They're all elevating their commitments. That's why we are very, very excited, and we are very happy to work with them. There will be an important moment in the next 2 days. There will be G20 Climate and Energy and Environment Ministerial, but just immediately afterwards, on the 25 and 26, COP26 presidency is also convening an extraordinary ministerial, because usually ministerials are held before, 1 month before. That was the pre-COP, but because the progress in the pandemic era is really not easy, and because of the complexities, the UK presidency have decided to convene this. This will be an in-person meeting at the ministerial level. At the moment, there's a list of documents that is listing the questions. We are invited as a constituency to submit our inputs to those questions. This was a bit short notice, so and this such a practice of written inputs published on the homepage was not followed in the Climate and Development Ministerial in March. So it's good that UK presidency is also improving their stakeholder engagement. So we will do our best that we will try to provide very basic text that is based on our previous submissions, that is based on our LGMA roadmap. But we also would encourage that we emphasize in this discussion the details of COP26 logistics. This was discussed in the morning webinar today. Many of the stakeholders of LGMA member community or constituency have supported this idea that we should emphasize the COP26 logistics, and obviously inclusive climate action is something that we should focus on as well. So the updates, let's recall what's going on now in the last couple of weeks and the next couple of weeks is that obviously we are less than 100 days to go. I mean, by Friday, it will be almost 100 days to go. But as of today, very few information is available about the Blue Zone plan, the capacity, the quotas, and all this stuff is still very, very vague. And there are not too much information from neither the UNFCCC nor presidency of the COP26. Meanwhile, several processes are ongoing. First of all, the applications for the UNFCCC managed side events and exhibits are taking place. There were applications submitted. Now all those applicants are in the process of merging because of the capacity issue. The UNFCCC is encouraging merger. We are very happy LGMA constituency members are submitted already a number of events and they're merging, so that's good news. But meanwhile, there is a new process on vaccine offer of the UK presidency. This has been communicated earlier and we shared our comments. I will touch on it later on in the next slide, but the applications are already closed. The UK presidency have already confirmed a quota so that not all the applications are very likely fulfilled, so that they receive a quota. We don't know yet. And these applications by name, individuals have to be submitted with the deadline of 23rd of July, this week. Because once you receive these documents, probably there will be several processes, because managing of vaccination is something that we don't know yet, how it is done through embassies of UK or the World Health Organization. It's not clear yet. So it takes time. And knowing that every vaccine is usually are taking 2 jabs in between their times of 4 weeks or 2 weeks, definitely it has to be processed very quickly. So this has to be done. But the vaccination is not the only group of delegations. So the real Blue Zone delegations will be submitted to be nominated by observers in the month of August. And UNFCCC Secretariat will review all these applications, and they will also be informed by the COP26 presidency, UK and Scottish government, in the way they are planning the blue zone, and taking into account these two inputs, the demand and the capacity. The UNFCCC by 6th of September announced the delegation quotas for every accredited organization. This is not a constituency-based process. It's an accredited organization-based process. And depending on those number of delegations who are eligible to enter to the blue zone, the organization will nominate their names, and this will also shape, of course, what will happen in the blue zone, side events or pavilions. The list of merged events, which ones will be approved by the secretary, will be announced by the end of September, and which gives 1 month for all speakers to fulfill their visa procedures, their quotas, and their vaccines, whatever, in less than a month time, which is, as you can see, this is an immense hectic race. Let's hope that it goes to the top, not to the bottom. Meanwhile, one important point we'd like to recall all of us, that UNFCCC is one of the 3 conventions. The other conventions are on biodiversity, CBD, and on desertification. And by chance, I mean, these multilateral and environmental agreements have their unique process, but there have a lot of commonalities in terms of the modalities. There are some differences, obviously, in the practices. For example, climate COPs are convened every year, whereas biodiversity and desertification COPs are every 2 years. So just one example of how they can differentiate, but obviously they cannot be too much different. So this year there will be another COP. This is the biodiversity COP, and it is important because it will be one of the decision-making moments for the future of biodiversity and nature in our sustainability efforts. And this will be hosted 3 weeks before in China. And what we know, that there is also some plans by the UK, just like UNFCCC UK and the parties, is also similar, the CBD Secretariat and China. What you see now up on this list, and we are saying that the information is not enough, but let's remember the information in the biodiversity is even less. And there's a reason for that, because there are a lot of informal consultations that we're aware of, that the way the biodiversity COP will be convened in China in October will be much different than what is being designed or announced by the UK for the climate COP. What we are hearing, that in Kunming in China, the COP will be rather procedural or ceremonial, which means the parties represented by the national ambassadors in Beijing will go to Kunming. They will be taking the credentials from their national governments to speak on their behalf of their governments. The first thing is that they will achieve a quorum of parties represented, and the first agenda item will be to elect the president of COP, which is the host country, which is China, which means the Egyptian government will hand over the presidency role on biodiversity from their responsibility to China, so that they will be responsible politically in the next couple of months or even years. And once this is done, we are hearing that there will be more ceremonial political commitments from presidents, heads of governments, and afterwards the sessions will be virtual, especially for stakeholders. This could be virtual before the COP or during COP, but there will be no side events, there will be no pavilions, and there will be no negotiations. Very likely, all the negotiations for biodiversity will continue in the year ahead, starting with a session in Geneva or even throughout 2021. But this is how China will manage, and how the CBD Secretary will manage the COP in Kunming, taking into account all the difficulties and challenges of an intergovernmental negotiation process under the COVID conditions. So the Chinese government are not offering any vaccines, and they are not even announcing any procedural application, because they are all aware that everything in biodiversity COP will be virtual, but there will be no negotiations as such. So the challenge is that how these 2 COPs in 3 weeks will differ from each other, with the way that is already announced by the UK and CBD and UNFCCC and China and CBD Secretariat. We as ICLE, based on our experience, are expecting that it cannot be too much different. So at certain point, very likely the Chinese model will also apply to the UK model. But the question is, when will this be announced? And here comes our updates once again. We have been sharing with emails all these information. Our dear friend Felix Dodds, a longtime member of the local and regional governments constituency in numerous fora, have kindly uploaded our updates into his guest blog, so you can read all these updates about the briefings and all this information. On the way to vaccination offer, ICLE has provided a couple of points to be clarified. We have communicated to the UNFCCC, we have communicated to the presidency UK, and this includes the quotas, the share of breakdowns, how these will be managed, but also how, especially the management of this vaccination in relation to the access to the UK will be differing, because we are seeing at the moment the COVID measures say that even if you're vaccinated, you have to go through tests, and if you're negative, you have to have in 10 days quarantine. For some countries, even if you're vaccinated, it doesn't matter if it is BioNTech or others. If it is not a UK vaccinated process, you still have to go to this 10 days quarantine, which you have to pay the cost. And 10 days is already like the beginning and end of the COP. So by the time you finish your 10 days quarantine, the COP is already over. So obviously, the financial cost, the logistical cost, the political cost of all these measures are giving us huge difficulty to nominate even or plan for any delegation, because even those are clarified, they have to get their approvals from their own national authorities, the local and regional governments, their staff. So it's a huge, complex situation. Based on all these, especially for vaccines process, because this vaccination has so much consequences, and that none of those points or concerns we have raised have been answered until now, ICLE decided not to submit any applications for vaccination offer of the UK presidency. Other constituencies may have done that. We have heard from some of our partners in the LGMA constituency that they haven't applied yet, but there may be others that we don't know. So we would be very happy if our members can convey this information to us. So we are now wait and see mode. Once the vaccination over is proceeded, we don't know, but we are rather waiting for the full announcement on the blue zone arrangements, and there we'll see how we will engage ourselves both in person and virtually. In the meantime, the UK presidency have announced their program thematic priorities. You can see they have now offered the World Leader Summit, or announced World Leader Summit officially as part of the agenda of COP26. This is important because this is similar to the model that was applied in Paris. In Paris, you remember the first 2 days were also leaders level, and there at that moment our pavilions were not even open, so we were not engaged at all. We don't know how we will be engaged as stakeholders. We are hearing that there may be some race to zero or race to resilience roundtables. At the moment, we don't know what is the scope, what is the capacity. Very likely the leaders summit will be in person, and how the rest will continue, we don't know yet. And if you can remember, before UK president announced this program, we also shared with LGMA constituency our assessment or our scenario. And we are very happy that what we have communicated to you are, let's say, 90% compatible with what has been announced by the presidency. The only detail that is not clear is which elements of the UK program will be in person and which elements will be virtual. When it comes to this discussion, we are also aware it is impossible not to expect any virtual elements, even if there's an in-person meeting taking place. And it's also impossible under these conditions to expect the full 2 weeks of COP to be held in person and with full with full negotiations element, because all these concerns do not apply only to observers, but even delegation from global south, global north are having these difficulties. Like one important point, the US government already announced yesterday that they are not advising travel to UK because of the new practices in the UK on COVID-19. So it's not a global north and south issue. Across the world, every country is having different practices on management of COVID, and everybody is concerned that the relative, let's say, pace of COVID, the spread around the world can accelerate with these kind of global moments, and the summer period in the Northern Hemisphere, the global events like Tokyo Olympics or the European Cups, they are all giving signals that the COVID measures, what we have achieved so far, could accelerate in a negative sense. So everybody's cautious. So it's not just the host country, but also the countries who are planning to attend will also have a say, and that's why we hope the meeting next week or this week of the presidency with the ministerial on the COP26 may be the last hope that we will receive some announcement, because if the July is already over, noting that August is very relatively low in terms of presence of officials and signing, it will be extremely difficult to make sure a meaningful in-person meeting in Glasgow. Therefore, we hope sometime soon Biodiversity Secretariat and China announces their model, and we also hope their model is also in synergy with what will happen in Glasgow, so that is also announced, so that these ambiguities are over, and that instead of logistical challenges, we focus on our work at home. As you have seen, that NDCs do not have to be related themselves to the virtual or in-person COP. NDCs have to be held in Bonn at home. They should be decided at the national level. And you have seen the heat, the floods across the world, that people are rather aiming to focus on the solutions rather than logistical challenges. And personally, and as institutionally, ICLE thinks that a meaningful in-person COP in next year and a procedural ceremonial COP supported by virtual elements is much realistic and much more appropriate. But as we all know, ICLE is not in a decision-making mode, neither me. So these are all our comments, and in the absence of official announcements, so we have to wait and see. Under these conditions, these are my last two slides. We are prepared for a LGMA COP26 Blue Zone Multi-Level Action Pavilion. This is a 100-meter square application that we have submitted. We still don't know the overall cost of the design and equipment and finance, furnitures and rental spaces. We are very happy that with ICLE and Scottish Government, we have an MOU to be covering a huge majority of the costs, but we are expecting there will be some deficits, and we are expecting the LGMA constituency, our collaboration with our partners, will help us to match the remaining costs. And this depends, of course, on what will happen in this pavilion. So as a basic, let's say, expectation, even in person or virtual, it doesn't matter. We are expecting that there will be daily LGMA briefings in this pavilion. There will be side events of LGMA community in relation to the UNFCCC agenda and Champions agenda and our roadmap, obviously. There will be dialogue sessions with UNFCCC delegations, hopefully, that we would like to interact with the negotiators so that the decisions that will be out of the COP process refers to LGMA priorities. We can have some spatial interviews with special guests and special partners, and we can host this space. We can use the space as the host for launch of several announcements by LGMA constituencies and partners. Obviously, the engagement in this space, in person or virtual, will give us also the hope that we will cover all the costs. In terms of the partnership, we would like to propose that this will be convened by ICLE as the focal point, that we are managing the technical, like the Sherpa of this process. The host of this space will be Scottish Government. The co-host would be from Glasgow till City of Bristol, who used to be also the host of the LGMA Pavilion in the 2015 at Paris. At that time, they were the European Green Capital. So Bristol is expressing its interest to be a host of this space. Sao Paulo government from Brazil, they have expressed their interest. So we can work with them, and there might be others to come up. We can have program partners, those who would convene these events. We can have thematic partners, depending on the themes that will be covered. We can have media partners, and we can have other partners who may wish to endorse by in-kind contributions or politically, or with financial contributions like sponsorship. We would make sure this blue zone will be strongly in synergy with the green zone of the UK government, which is led primarily by UK actors like COSLA, LGA, we all know UK 100. In Glasgow, we will make sure there will be a lot of engagement of City of Glasgow and Scottish Government. So we would like to make sure this is also in synergy. We will very likely expect some sort of a gathering of local and regional governments. The exact timing will be defined, or format will be defined based on this clarification, so that we all make sure that the blue zone is not independent, but is in relation or in collaboration with other engagement in the green zone, but also in the City of Glasgow. In the next, as I said, there will be G20 ministerial tomorrow and Friday, then immediately followed by Sunday and Saturday, Monday, the COP26. In August, we're expecting relatively calmness in terms of mobilization or events. We're starting September with a US Conference of Mayors summer conference. We will see UN, the General Assembly, Energy Summit, Food Summit will come on board. Federal elections will come in Germany. It's an important actor in the climate space. So the results may shape not necessarily COP26 outcome, but the future ambition and mobilization. We will be prepared for the pre-COP starting from 30th of September. We are already confirmed a second ministerial mayor conference in collaboration with UN Habitat, UNDP, and UN Environment, as well as ICLE, GCOM, and Global Covenant of Mayors and UCLG. Across October, we will be aggressively promoting our actions, because Urban October will focus on climate, and UN Habitat is the main convener of this. And during Urban October, we'll have Daring Cities and Innovate for Cities. We will also have the end of the October with G20 Summit. So the last but not least, tomorrow there will be an important event. The Marrakesh Partnership Human Settlements Action Pathway will be launching version 2.0 of their action tables on waste and consumption. This waste and consumption subgroup is co-led by ICLE, and the built environment part is co-led by UNEP. The waste and consumption will be presented tomorrow on the 22nd of July, but the built environment section will be presented the week after on the 29th of July by an event coordinated by UNEP. And we encourage all of you to join us because the Human Settlements Action Pathway is also powerful for raising ambition and making national governments and UNFCCC community to be much more embracing the power of local engineering governments. With this, let me finish my session today as a presentation. I see 2 points raised by a chat box in the Q&A box as well. The first one was short by Firdaus from UCLG, our dear friend Firdaus. She's asking, is it still planned as a presential event? Maybe Firdaus, I think you were mentioning about sometime, but you can take the floor. Just give me a second. Let me read the other input from the chat box, which came from Andrew. I think it was Andrew Potts from Climate Heritage Network, one of our dear partners in the LGMA constituency with the Climate and Culture Heritage constituency. So he has shared his comment. So excited for the first ever meeting of Ministers of Culture of G20 countries in Rome next week. Congratulations, which is expected to issue a declaration addressing climate crisis through culture, which among other things will also call for mainstreaming arts, culture, and heritage into adaptation and resilience planning and focus on the cultural dimension of decarbonizing buildings. We are very happy this Climate Heritage Network's mobilization over the past years. It was initiated in 2018 at the San Francisco Climate Action Summit. ICLE, I'm particularly part of the process as an international advisor board, but our colleagues from UCLG and many stakeholders from LGMA constituencies are part of this network, and we are aware they're running an ambitious agenda. Andrew is coordinator of this process, and thanks for this update, Andrew. If you want, you can again intervene in the verbal section. So the floor is open for partners or participants of this process today. You can raise your hands, we can give you the floor, or you can type again on the chat box. Anything we're missing, you can also compliment if needed. And we once again are appreciating your interest to this process. I see a number of colleagues in the attendees, familiar faces. Feel free to take up the floor as well. I see some colleagues whose names are new for me. You can introduce yourself at the moment when you take the floor. But if not, we can also keep our session short. It's always good to save time in this hectic moments. So we can always save our precious moments for other agendas if there's no point for clarification. Just to be on the safe side, once again, you will receive the webinar recording, and you will receive the presentation tomorrow, so that you can use this for your purposes. It will also be available on the web. I see Braulio Diaz, the climate advocacy manager from ICLE South American Secretariat. Braulio, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Yunus. Good day to all of you, wherever you are in the world. And I just wanted to confirm, well, to ask, In terms of the pavilion, the LGMA pavilion, if it is being working along with the global task force, or how is it shaping? And also another question regarding the delegations. Nowadays that the accreditations are closed for the vaccination, do our delegations have, and since we did not apply for any option for vaccination, which are the options or the opportunities that the cities or local governments could have, in the months to come? Shall we wait to communicate any information around these? What is your suggestion? Thank you.
Sorry, I muted myself. Thanks for your points, Braulio. Let me start with the last one. So the nominations for vaccines are only one part of the delegations that we are expecting to be attending COP. So our full list of blue zone accreditations will only be defined by 6th of September. Why? We will first, and let me go back to the slide again. So according to this deadlines or calendar, we will submit our wish list or nomination quota, let's say. It's the important is the numbers. We would say that we would, when we say we, every accredited organization will communicate their list to the UNFCCC. UNFCCC will receive these applications. They will also receive the information in terms of capacity of the blue zone, and they have certain restrictions. Obviously, because of very likely with COVID measures, the number of blue zone attendees will be less than a typical COP in the past at any given moment. This would mean that the number of delegation quotas may be shrinked as well. But as we said before, nothing is announced along these lines. These are all hypotheses. Right? These are all guesses at the moment, assumptions. We don't know anything. Once we receive the quotas, if it is 1, 5, 10, 100, 200, then each organization will go back to their own nomination list and saying that, look, this is what I got, and here is the one that I confirmed. Those people who are receiving the blue zone badges will be eligible to get a visa for free for UK. But this doesn't mean that there will be no one others. I mean, the green zone in the UK problem, this is always the practice that there's a UNFCCC, the UN restricted areas, which is the blue zone, but there will be some events in the green zone, which is free as long as you have access to UK, as long as you have a visa to UK, you can enter to the green zone. It's the city of Glasgow. You can attend any of those events. You are not requested to have a badge, UNFCCC badge for that. But the cost, or let's say the consequence, that you are not able to receive a special UNFCCC accreditation badge from UNFCCC as well. ICLE or other organizations can issue your invitation, but these are not the official invitations to the COP. So these can only be decided. I mean, we will work with you in terms of ICLE, but also other networks. They will all work from their delegation lists. This will only be confirmed by 6th of September. How many will be able to register and who of them will be? I mean, obviously, by the 6th of September, I'm not expecting everybody will be to clarify, because we will see that very likely our waiting list will be much longer and the quota will be less. We have to negotiate internally, and then we will proceed with the issuance of the acknowledgement letters. Coming back to your first question, ICLE is the focal point on behalf of Global Task Force as well. So the engagement of the Global Task Force in the UNFCCC space is managed by ICLE. The global coordination of Global Task Force is UCLG, and we're in touch with UCLG colleagues. So the management of the LGMA will be coordinated by ICLE, but in collaboration with other partners, obviously. And before we go on to the further details, we would like to have especially financial cost implications, because this is not for free. Blue Zone engagement is really costly. It's one of the most costly process that I have ever seen in the COP process. It is £400 per meter square, plus VAT 20%, And it also has to be added by additional any material that you would use, that any chair, any desk, any seat, any TV screen that has to be monitorized. And we haven't received any of this information from the COP26 presidents yet. The services, the consultancy company has not shared these details. Obviously, these costs will shape what type of more engagement we will have. And once these are clarified, based on this model, that some of us will be convening as program partners, some of us will be co-hosts, some of us will be thematic partners. Obviously, there will be space for those who do not have financial capacity, because we do not want to restrict it. That's why we are receiving a good support from Scottish government, so that the participation in the pavilion should not be limited to the financial cost, but we should not ignore that there is a cost in complication. So we would like to communicate this with all our partners, with the Global Task Force members, and also the LGMA constituency. Hopefully, there will be more information coming up soon. We will share this vision with you after sending the links and the presentation, so that you can also start to think about in terms of how to proceed for the next steps. I hope this was clear. Are there any other points to be raised by any other partners? It could be contribution, it could be question for clarification, it could be any missing information. You can type in your open questions, Q&A box or in chat box, but if not, I hear Braulio's thanking for the clarification. I'm happy that his points were addressed. I see Veronica from CC35, Executive Secretary of CC35, a longtime friend of our LGMA constituency and the Latin American region. One question, probably you know this, Yunus. UK requests to be 10 days in confinement, even though you are vaccinated for countries listed in red. Veronica, I'm sorry, this is even worse, because even the countries in the amber list are expected to be in 10 days UK managed quarantine, which is, it's not that you go to your own hotel or home, but you have to pay £1,750 so that you are quarantined in the UK managed hotels, and then you have to pay for other costs relevant, and this will be applying for even for the amber list. So most Europeans, most US. So that is the situation. As of today, this is the practice of the UK. There were opportunities that UK may announce exceptions for quarantines, and they will apply this for the July ministerial. So this weekend, when ministers are going to UK, they will not be quarantined, even if they're coming from amber list countries, because it's the decision of the UK who could apply this. The difficulty is, the interesting thing is that the ministerial of July is taking place in London, which is England, which is not Scotland. In Scotland also has their own authorities or their own procedures. So what happens in England does not necessarily automatically apply in Scotland. So this is also changing. And finally, the UK just announced that in terms of vaccines, and let me go to that slide as well while talking. In the current procedures, any visitor who is going to UK that is vaccinated outside the UK bodies. So if a German citizen who has been vaccinated by BioNTech, or if a US citizen who has been vaccinated by Moderna or BioNTech in the US, according to the current announcement, they are not considered by the UK as fully vaccinated. So in the case of your visit to UK, even if you are vaccinated by your authorities, the UK doesn't acknowledge them as vaccinated. Therefore, you have to go to quarantine again. So complexities are even advancing further. We hope these will be all clarified soon by the UK government. Just half an hour ago, before this session, I was in the call, regular constituency focal points with the UK. We once again raised this issue that they have to communicate this as soon as possible. And in terms of and this was the morning discussion we had, the submission to the July ministerial as LGMA to these 5 points, we will very likely add another element of COP26 logistics that we will expect. We would ask or urge the UK presidency and the UNEP secretariat to provide logistics detail as soon as possible before it is too late. I am personally worried that if the ministerial meeting also does not make any clarification, it will be extremely late, and it is unrealistic to expect any in-person meetings to be fully inclusive in the UK for a climate negotiation COP. Therefore, I am also hoping that the Chinese government and the CBD secretariat also announce their modalities for the biodiversity COP in Kunming, so that at least there is some certain guidance. So it's not rumors that you don't hear from me or someone else, but we refer to the official documents. Once again, anything you heard from me, either via email or in this kind of webinars, unfortunately, I cannot support them with any official documentation because it doesn't exist. I may be wrong. Some of the guidance or let's say recommendations may be not correct. Hopefully or luckily, so far, none of this like that has happened. All what we have provided has turned out to be true. Therefore, I'm very happy. At least we are not misguiding any of you. But if any of those prove to be wrong, please, this is only because of the challenges of working under these conditions. So Leo from WRI, Ross Center Director is based in London. He has some comment. Can you please let us know of the process for submitting contributions to the LGMA inputs to the July ministerial? We will circulate in the LGMA mailing list. This information came last week. Therefore, it's also a bit last minute in terms of our mobilization. We will do our best. I would suggest that we keep it very short so that it is very basic, but definitely you will have options to contribute, but it should come in the next, I mean, we should conclude this by Friday evening. So let's see how we will be able to manage it. But from the Coalition for Urban Transitions CUT flagship report for COP26, obviously we would be very proudly taking into account inputs, obviously, and from CUT, Leo, you're more than welcome, and we also once again appreciate your all efforts and contributions to this process. I see no other, as far as I see. Veronica also responded positively for the explanations. Leo, thank you also for your recognition acknowledgement. I also refer to your previous message from after the last webinar. Sorry, I couldn't respond to that, but I'll come back to you again on your email. But we will definitely stay in touch. I think we are all aware that you're literally in very extraordinary moments. Therefore, I appreciate all your flexibilities and understanding and collaboration together with all our partners from the members of the constituency. We're a powerful community and we're helping each other. I see Masha Smirnova. There's an input from the Q&A box. Thanks a lot, Yunus, for the informative webinar. It was a first time for me. Very happy to hear this, Masha. I think you are from Eurocities. Yes, EU Green Deal campaign manager. Are you going to organize the next one in August, September? Definitely, Masha. Yes, we will organize. So we are having these monthly webinars every third Wednesdays. Time to time, we are changing in terms of the timings. There may be one day before or 1 week before, whatever. For the moment, we are scheduling it the third week of August. If needed, we may convene an extraordinary regular call, depending on those announcements. But I'm happy that you found those very helpful, and especially with the mailing list, we're sharing much more updates. So in case you are not involved in the LGMA mailing list, please send an email to us so that we can include you. Otherwise, we will try to keep us informed via these kind of calls and webinars in the next weeks. With this, I think we are getting to the end of our session, and I appreciate all your inputs. Thank you very much for all your contributions, and I hope these were helpful for you. We will share with you all the updates with the links tomorrow onwards, and we wish you the best of a day for you, especially for those who are suffering from all these deadly catastrophes and from North America to Middle and China. But we also would like to congratulate and commend all those colleagues who are celebrating or observing the Muslim holiday, Eid al-Adha, the one of the two important holidays of the Muslim community. So with this in mind, thank you all and wish you the best of all in the next days, and we'll stay in touch for other updates. Thank you very much.